Ladies and gentlemen, rather, many thanks once again. And Erica, it's over to you.
Thank you. And now, before I call you to the panel, Kurachi Wata is a seasoned real estate professional based here in Harare. And he has a wealth of experience spanning from residential to also commercial property markets and across Zimbabwe, South Africa, and also Botswana. Now, without boring you, I think as he will be doing his introduction, he will also flavor us with a lot more. But I do know that we can get staggers of information. And with that being said, please, with a round of applause, please, can you help me welcome him to the panel? And as he makes his way over, on the panel, first panel for this morning, is also Crystal Moshonga, and she is a dedicated social impact entrepreneur. She's also in tech business, and she is a tech business enthusiast, and she's got a history of efficiently starting and managing a diverse range of products and businesses, as CEO and co-founder of Property Handle Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, with a show of a round of applause, please can you help me welcome her to the panel? And while she takes her seat, allow me, please, ladies and gentlemen, to welcome Mr. Philip Chabata. And he is the SADC representative for African Diaspora Development Institute. And he's also, in this case, I stand to be corrected, MAGCO official mandate for Zimbabwe. And he also represents Drug International Limited Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, by a show of hands. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I did have a young, what I'll call it a young conversation with him, and that was about traffic, as we were just complaining about how hectic it was for us to get here this morning. Over to the panel. His name is Mr. Chester Menda. I will leave it over to you as we sit down to flavor us with a full profile. But with a show of hands, please, can you help me welcome him on to the panel? And if you would please give us, if it would take a minute or two to get the panel house in order, and we will get started. I did ask to sit in front so that I can have everyone's attention and for once again be the center of attention. If I may at this particular juncture ask if you can get one more microphone for the flow of conversation. Yeah, we've got two. One more would do. Okay, that will have to suffice. Ladies and gentlemen, as we are going to be getting into the first panel for this morning, the topic for the first panel this morning is innovative financing models, and that's for sustainable real estate development. And now, first things first, I will allow and ask the panelists to give us a detailed opening submissions, and that is in short and layman English introductions of oneself. Now we will start from Mr. Chester Mende, and we will continue down the panel.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Chester Mende. I'm the managing director of Shelter Incorporated. Shelter Incorporated has 3 brands. The one brand is Shelter Zimbabwe. We are in housing, the broad sense of housing, from flats, clusters, and gated estates. We are in Afterlife with 2 brands, Etosha Memorial and Etosha Gardens, behind Rua Golf Club. I look forward to this discussion. We've been in this business for the last 43 years.
Well, I'm Philip Chabata. I am who I am at the time where you see me. I am the anchor for ADDI, Africa Diaspora Development Institute. So I roam around the region, and I see a lot of things that are happening, especially in development, in housing, in real estate development. I was also the vice president for real estate in the Dallas-Fort Worth area for over 8 years until the 2007 disaster. We never knew that money can come to an end. Marino Pera. We used to think real estate was just bringing money, but when the disaster for 2007 disaster for mortgages happened, I changed. I went back into pharmacology. So I also represent Drug International Limited in the whole of Africa, and also I'm chairing the Health Galaxy Park, the new Health Galaxy Parks in the new city. It's a $5 billion project that is just starting. So you'll be seeing me more and more in the region because everything is happening here home. I love real estate. That's home.
I'll definitely take that note. I love real estate and that's home. Over to you, Ms. Mshonga.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Crystal Mshonga. I don't really like this title, but yeah, it gets thrown around a lot. CEO of Property Handle. It was my brainchild. So what Property Handle is, it's an alternative financing solution for real estate. And our focus is mostly on affordable housing. That is my passion. I have been in the real estate industry for more than 8 years, and whilst I was working in your basic management and sales, I'm selling all these houses, these beautiful houses, and I can't even afford one. So I thought that's when the whole idea came about. What if I could be able to become a landlord with just $100 or $10 or even $1? So yes, that's how Property Handle was born. It's for fractional ownership. So we are trying to make real estate accessible to everyone. It's a form of storing wealth and building your wealth. Yes, so that is the journey that we're on. Our platform is online now, but we are not trading as yet. Regulatory issues, but we are there. We're available online. You can always sign up. That's what I'm about. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Tunaitwa Kuraone Chiota, and I'm a Southern African property korokoza. I live in Twitter. Money is moving is my handle, and I really, really enjoy waking up, down waka tangando or some coffee, and then get to tweeting. If we're marking spots, Mkoma wangu Chester said he's there for 43 years. I got my real estate license in South Africa in 1996, and I've been trading ever since. I like to think of myself as life mission to democratize property ownership, getting as many people to own as much property to have the transformative capacity of this asset class. So I speak a lot of English. I try and put together transactions that make sense: landowner, investor, buyer, bank. Those kind of four corners are different. This side of the Limpopo is on the other side of the Limpopo, but really we're just applying the idea that you start small. If it's a stand, if it's a club of guys of stand, if it's an apartment I bought in Hillbrow for 36,000 Rand, whatever it is, get on the journey, start buying, and you'll see the transformative properties of real estate in your life. It's delightful to be home, to contribute to with you. We can go from the micro to the listed. I've consulted with the biggest portfolios in the country. I used to have a big afro, and then I worked for NASA, and then that kind of went somewhere else. But I'm here, Ntumwana Wenyu, I'm your brother, and great to be here and contribute to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all the detailed introductions by the panelists. And now to get the rule and room in order, I will be cutting you short if it so happens that we need to keep track of time. We do only have 45 minutes for this panel, so I plead with my panelists that I do know that we do have a lot of edifying information to get from the four of you, but I plead that we give each other a turn and try and move with time. But with that being said, we will be getting started. And once we are done with the panelists, we will be having a question and answer. So I will be roving the mic over all through the tables for the questions that happens after the panelists give us a couple of nuggets. Getting right into it, real estate is a huge capital investment that I'm sure we're all in knowledge of, and I will lean toward Mr. Chiwota because he lives on Twitter. And we are in an era of digital poverty and also property poverty. So people don't know what we can do to acquire property and all those other things. Moving along with the digital poverty, I think we will try and ask to get most of that from you. Most of the questions that we're going to be asking are going to be leaning toward the parts that banks have to play toward our topic this morning, which is innovating financing models for sustainable real estate development. I will start with Mr. Kura Chiwota, and maybe if you could touch for us what finance mechanisms are available to those knowledgeable and also to those who are not, those of us who are not, if I should put it that way.
Okay, thank you. So Zimbabwe is quite capital tight. We can use that big word liquidity, but the ability of money to circulate and continue circulating within the economy is under somewhat stress. If we look at the big money, if you look at our insurance and pension funds, whereas 20 years ago, there might have been 25 million US dollars in collections from pension fund contributions because people were employed and that money was saved, the 25 million a month, we're down to maybe $10 million a month. So if you add that all up, if all of the pension funds didn't spend 1 cent, there would be 120 million accumulated at the end of the year. By the time you've got the number and scale of projects that we have going, 120 ikago, it's short. If you go and look at where the Reserve Bank has tracked where money is lent, less than 5%, less than 5 is in mortgages. So the banks are not lending to us on the mortgage side. The way people are trying to do it is doing kanzato, bit by bit, by either collaborating or buying land off a developer on a session and then building up capital, saving, building bricks, saving, putting up a slab, and then going on like that. So we are capital hungry, but the cost and the availability of it, there's a constipation in the system.
Okay, with that being said, I think whilst we are on what finance mechanisms are available, I think I should also then digress and ask what finance mechanisms are available for, let's say, if you're looking at maybe civil servants, those of a lease paycheck. What can we do, because that is a majority of people that are looking for property and land but cannot afford and cannot even imagine to afford? What's being done there?
So our government does have some stated policies. So NBS as a building society, is core mandate is to drive housing development, and to a core mandate being civil servants. So by holding a banking license and trying to create capital, the government has intervened on that basis. Then there are other mechanisms. Private players will always abhor a vacuum. So you can have property instruments. One is Property X, which is listed on the FinSec, where you can put in $50, $100, $1,000 a month, and it accumulates over time for you to exit into a stand. We've got one of the exhibitors here, Vakayako, being done by Fidelity. It's the same thing. You must put out a further one, Ndinoati Mkoma Fidza, in the south of Harare. He's also saying, Ndine nyore nyore. So, unzaka $10 kako, whatever it is, and build it up over time. I think the lesson to be learned, and if my son was in the room, I'd say this job, property is a get rich slowly scheme. Take your time, and we go do what you can with what you have, where you are. We all want to end up with a cluster in Borrowdale, but there ain't nothing wrong in starting in buying a stand in one of Mr. Mendes' developments.
Lovely that you moved over there, because I was going to say in no particular order am I swinging with the questions. It is just so that we can get a lot of nuggets toward our topic. And should I reiterate, there's innovative financing models for sustainable real estate development. Now, Mr. Mende, I must ask you, I think even taking on from what Mr. Chiwota did say, you are a successful developer. Needless to say or talk about the 43 years. But I must ask again, leaning toward my question, what do you do maybe from the Kanzatu for the people that can't afford salary-based housing or stands or land. As a developer, what are you doing? How are you helping toward this? What models are they in place, even for just the general public?
Thank you, Erica. This is a very sensitive topic. Historically, and I think I'm going to be your historical base, given I am the geriatric here. Historically, we are discussing what we have called social housing. Now, social housing is what Kura has just talked about, where you kanzatu over time. Those of you in here that have influence in government or the media, my request would be that government come back and discuss in more decisive terms on 2030. 2030 is a problem, and I'm talking 2030 as it relates to currency. You remember that US dollar was officialized to 2025, and in October 2024, the minister lifted, in October 2023, the minister lifted it and extended it to 2025. And then later on, it was moved on to he moved it from 2025 to 2030. We have a problem with 2030. 2030 is 6 years from now. Now, because it's 6 years from now, your average mortgage, when you're talking about social loans, which is the kanzatu, the bottom end of the market, 6 years is not enough. Statistics have told us that those loans require about a minimum of 9 years. So if you bring a pension fund or if you approach a pension fund to fund it, you have a problem because of 2030. So back to my organization. Since time immemorial, we do pay schemes. And we've got flexible pay schemes where you either spread the deposit over time and then begin to pay the capital. But we only deal in the upper, low, and middle income. We do not do the upper end of the market. So that's what I see as funding in this market. But I also believe that this market now requires community funding. Some people who are my age, and I'm sure you are still seeing remnants of it in the market, what we call cooperatives. Something along those lines has to come into our market. And I believe community funding is the option, and the reason why it's community, it's because Chabata and I know each other, and we can collect together because we can trust each other. We will build his house, and then down the road we will build the next person's house and the next person's house, and we move on like that. That's how I see it.
Thank you so much for the contribution there. I'm picking up togetherness. I think if we move from, should it be even public, private partnerships, or even kanzatu, you called it community partnerships. Community funding. That's really my gather there. Now we'll move over to who we usually flash to as a people whenever we encounter difficulties acquiring anything that is banks. And I'll move it over to Miss Crystal Mushonga. What can we get banks to come on board as well, especially even banks from abroad, local banks? Idealistically, how does that work?
Banks are, in general, sorry.
Please, can you hold your mic close?
Okay. No, banks are players in the market, but at a very small scale, because of the economic environment. Mostly, they are risk mitigating, which we understand. But how they can contribute to making the market more attractive, more open, and more transparent. They can work with, for example, you spoke about cooperatives. Cooperatives are a very good financing mechanism, especially in a situation like Zimbabwe. But the way that most of them are managed is very shaky. It's very shaking. They can help. Most cooperatives that are there right now are not even digitized. So for us to even bridge between the diaspora, even working with the local banks, working with cooperatives also, they could go into the market, rally people to be able to join these cooperatives that are doing my projects around the country, and then they help them with digital tools that can help with bridging the diaspora being able to access these projects wherever they are. So I believe that that can help with opening a channel and bringing a more broader, diverse investor pool into the market by doing that. They have the means, they have the way, and they bring the trust and the credibility. Because we see all these cooperatives, but we hear a lot of stories. So it's never my first option. But I will go to NBS, I will go to CABS. So that is one way they can help, because it's a really untapped investor pool, everyday person that's just sitting in here. So that is one way that they can go about it.
I will ask you a follow-up question, which is a very layman question that I come across a lot when it comes to this land. It is, if not the bank, then who? If I, as Erica, am looking to procure land, to own land, developers are not going to listen if I'm just me, civil servant me. So if not the bank, then who? I will give room for any one of you to pick up the question. It's just also we must ask these questions for the layman like me. So if not the bank, then who? Do you want to take that on? Sure.
So the economic model I understand is people work, they spend, companies want to attract that spend, they invest, those investments get taxed, it goes into the government system, the companies go and raise money on the stock exchange, and we have this economy of circulation. If we understand and we take a value-based approach where we're all adding value, there should be more for more. And if money is circulating, not going into dams and being put in the cold storage, a treasury bill sounds great, and our government has got lots of them, but that's frozen. It's not money in you and I's pocket that is moving from me to Erica to Chester. So that we've got to create this circulation of money. What hinders circulation of money? Roadblocks and costs. IMMT, transfer duty, VAT on land, higher state agents' commissions, all of those are hindering that. So we need to say, how do we get the smooth flow of this money? And the bank is but a player in the scheme. We can have syndicates, they can be listed. We can have REITs, they can be listed or unlisted. We can have pension funds. I know there are very high concentrations of real estate within that right now, but they need an unlock of that. And that happens when we make it as quick, as cheap and as easy as possible to do that. So I love the idea of property handle, a digital platform, tokenize real estate, securitize it, and keep it circulating. It doesn't have to circulate in the billions, just got 10 grand, got 5 grand, got 2 grand. And if it's moving along, we can aggregate that and then we get some progress.
We will have to touch on securitizing digital spaces there when it comes, because I'm sure we've heard a lot of things that go wrong there, but I must move on and ask Mr. Chabata, what role do pension funds have to play when it comes to land? We've experienced, heard of, witnessed, and also come to acknowledge a lot of schemes that have purported to come and help when it comes to development and building. But really and truly, what role does pension fund have to play?
Thanks, Erica. Thank you for the opportunity to be here and speak to you on such an important part of life. Real estate is for everybody. you must have a home. You can only feel safe when you have a home. But remember, it's not, the real estate is not only a home. We are also talking of land. We are also talking of other properties like commercial properties and all this. Now, coming to your question is, if I had a pension fund, I would be the happiest person. If I was leading a pension fund, I would be the happiest person in this country. Because funding opportunities, the people are saying there are no funds out there. But pensions are taking money every day. And as you take money every day, this most secure place to put that money is into real estate, land, properties. I think we have seen what Old Mutual has been doing. Old Mutual has become much richer in Zimbabwe, and you can see what they've done outside, but they became richer here. And you see most of the buildings that we see, they are owned by Old Mutual. And if you now, right now, if I was NASA and I'm holding public funds, that's where I would have put in people's public funds. Like, for example, the only thing that I know they've done very good on was this particular property we are sitting in. This is owned by NASA. This is the only property that I can say the government did. If I had that fund, I'll be building hotels and finding people to come and franchise on those hotels. I'll be building cluster homes. You hear the government saying there's a shortage of homes, and guess what? I would go and build cluster homes if I was a pension fund. Why? Because there's money. I know a place, someone took 1 acre, 400 square meters in Avondale, and he built 18 units. He's collecting 1,500 out of those 18 units per month. And he used $45,000 to build each unit. Imagine if I had those funds, I'll be building more. There's shortage of housing. So why not build houses, cluster homes? We know the market which would want cluster homes. These big houses that you used to build, nobody wants them anymore. I had a house, 4,000 square meters in Texas, in Mansfield, and we moved. I wanted someone to go and rent that house. I could not find somebody to rent that house. 3 years, it was sitting. So cluster homes, if I put cluster homes on that, I would have had a number of people. So if I was a pension fund, I would utilize that money to build hotels. There's a shortage of hotels in this country, in this city, in Victoria Falls, in Masvingo. Just try to hold a conference in Masvingo for more than 4,000 people, and you will see the nightmare. People will be coming from Kwekwe to come into Masvingo for a conference. Right now, sometimes if you are passing through Masvingo, which is a key city in the country coming into the region, if you try to find accommodation after 5, you never find it. So I would take that money and put it into those facilities, hotels, Airbnbs, and also housing. See, so give me that money, give me a pension fund, and I would show you how to do it. I will make wonders for you. There is an opportunity in Zimbabwe, let's grab it.
I will say that you did preempt a lot of questions that I did have on the pension fund, but I must then ask, do you see a working relationship between pension funds and developers? A collaborative relationship in that?
If you are a pension fund and they're developers, you should have a friendship or relationship. Whatever. Because this one has got funds that he wants to secure for the pensioners. Because if you don't secure them in properties, I can tell you anything else is feja. But if you put them in properties, the properties will be there. So developers, those who are developing, I'm not talking of these, they are real developers and land barons who are just doing stand. This issue of doing stands and selling must come to an end. The government must put an end to this type of, you are being called a developer for putting a road. So we are talking of developers. Developers would want to move on to developers who build real roads and put houses, and so that you can go to the mortgage system where a house is already built. Otherwise, our developments are not developments at all. But developers and the pension funders must have a relationship whereby if you're a developer, you can take money and build, you start from the roads, clear the land, go to the roads, go to sewage, and build the house and make our city become a real city. Not you are a developer, then this one builds a nice house here, the other one Katangwena, and the other one, that's not developing. We need to move out of that. If you give me a chance to lead in some day, we're going to make an end to that.
Thank you so much for tackling that extensively. And I do think that, I did see by the nod of heads that a lot of us do agree with you. Now, I will ask over, I think I will take this one with Mr. Jiwota. And maybe if we could please touch on public-private partnerships and how do they help fund, and I'm going to exclaim the keyword, sustainable. And I think taking from what Mr. Chabata was touching on, sustainability, the realness of the projects is what actually matters, the there being there of them. So how do we milk from public-private partnerships?
Okay, thank you for that. Just to touch on one thing Mr. Chabata said, pension funds don't have it easy here. They already have 44% of their assets in real estate. That concentration, it sounds great on safe place to put money, and I understand that prudence. But any pension fund needs some sort of flexibility and float for it to move in and out of assets. So the assets that we've got are typically older and stale. If you look at the yield that pension fund properties are currently achieving, if you look at the IPEC numbers, you get over $1 trillion in real estate, but the yield, the money that comes in on a monthly basis, is giving a return of less than 4%. So it's not as attractive with the old stuff that's there. The new stuff, your Revitas, your Tigere, your Eagle REIT that are coming through are trying to push that up to 6, 7, 8%, and we welcome that. So it's not an easy thing. My pension funds go gara and they're not doing things. If you're asking how does government get involved, I think the easiest play that any state can do is internationally, it's financial leverage. In the United States, there's a model, and Mr. Chabata can probably speak a lot closer to it, having mentioned the global financial crisis, where if you have an institution like there are two in the States, Freddie Mae or the Fannie Mac, those are government institutions that say, look, you'll have a CABS, you'll have an NBS, you'll have a CBZ building society. Ipai wanuma loans. If those loans go bang, you'll pursue that person and take his house or the property or the cars and whatever else. But if those loans still stay bad, then we will stand in behind that. So a government guarantee improves the credit rating of the offering. If it's an improved credit rating and it's less risky, in theory, it should cost less. If it costs less, that means more of us can get on board. If more of us get on board, that means more can be produced. If more can be produced, then we have lower unit costs and we get the growth that we love, want, and need. So I think that the magic that the Ministry of Finance could do would be to create a publicly backed mortgage indemnity that says, look, we want to see development in this space. If you lend, and south of the border or everywhere else in the world, when a bank is making a loan, there's a credit adjustment, there's capital that they have to maintain. Those loans given on a credit card is very high, very risky, can be defaulted. Those on property are very low risk, and you provide less capital, so it's cheaper for the bank to do that. So you've incentivized the bank to do that. So for sustainability, say our priority is to kupa Zimbabwe or see ground developed. We can give tax breaks and say to my Kunama developers, they did it in the Joburg CBD. The CBD was rotting and moving backwards. The government said, if you spend $1 million on this building, you can write off that $1 million over 5 years against your tax. You take the money, you keep the money, but you're not even going to pay us tax. So you've now got an incentive. Then if you, on top of that, then you say, can we please, if you lend into this space, we will make it attractive and we will back and indemnify you for losses. Not on a socialist basis, but on a commercial basis. You've now created a desirable asset that is cheaper, and we're having towards the $1 billion that we're trying to get to in this space.
Thank you so much for that detailed input. I think it is only right at this particular juncture to also touch on risks and returns, and also consider that for the developers and the finances and all. Sustainable real estate projects often come with a higher upfront cost. I think that we can all acknowledge. And how can financing models, I take that up with you, mitigate risk for developers, and also maybe we could look into investors and also just mitigate the risk for I, as again, I will say the layman buyer.
Okay, if I'm to understand your question well, you are saying how do they mitigate the risk of capital, the capital outlay for sustainable development?
Yes.
Okay, sorry, but I'm going to have to ask a question where that came from. What exactly?
I asked from the perspective of that you sit there as I'm sorry, I forgot. Property handle. As
Yes.
property handle, you sit there and you're trying to help Erica, but you do face these risks. And like you did say, you were coming in as the stand-in between how hard it was for the layman, Erica, but you also have risk to take. So how are you going to make sure that you don't run a loss and I do get what I want? And investors also come in and understand your business model and say, this is what you're running with, deleting the digital poverty, deleting the land poverty.
All right.
How are you mitigating those risks and conditions?
Okay, there are regulatory frameworks that protect the investor. I'll talk about the investor first, which is you, the buyer. There are certain frameworks in place. It all depends which way you're going, but we've got the Securities and Exchange Commission. The way that we are set up, anything that we are saying you can buy into and you can be able to get money at the end of it through rental income or capital gains is considered a financial asset. It's considered a security. So there are laws in the country that protect investors in that way. There's deposit protection that is provided. As a company like ours, we're supposed to have those things. We're supposed to check certain boxes that protect you. And then on our end also, certain associations, there's regulatory frameworks in place that can protect people in that way, which mitigates risk. And then when it comes on to the banking side, the banks also are regulated in how they partner with companies like ours. So there's regulatory frameworks in place. But when it comes to exactly what we do, digital assets, because what we take this, let's say this building, it's owned by NASA, we go and create a digital representation of it. So if you own a fraction, which is equivalent to 1 square meter of this building, you directly own in proportion to it. And you earn in proportion to what you have bought. In that, so that is now called tokenization. That's a digital asset of which we do not have a standing regulatory framework, but there's ways and means that they can get you in under the Securities and Exchange Commission, and the RBZ currently has what they call the FinTech Sandbox, because that's where it also goes in, especially if you're trading real estate digitally in that way. So they'll put you under that. They give you certain parameters on how you're supposed to do what you do to protect everyone, because this is your money, everyone. And also us, it's not our money that's going, it's your money. It needs to be accounted for. Yes, I don't know if I've answered that properly.
Yeah, definitely you did give us a touch-up nuggets there. I think as a reminder of where the questions I am posing are headed, it is towards strategically building $1 billion industry. So the questions are headed there. I don't know if Mr. Chabata, you want to maybe add on a couple of nuggets? Or if you'd like for me to reiterate the question again. Yeah?
No. I wanted to come in on, get me straight. I have nobody to attack here. I'm not a politician today. I wanted to come in on private-public partnership. It is a business deal between the government and the private sector or the private individuals. It's supposed to be the ideal way of development. If we want to develop, there must be the public-private partnerships. And the good thing about this partnership is that, Erica, if I build a house for you, and you want a house, and I as a government provide you land, and our friend, Mr. Mende, builds as a contractor, all of us, the three of us, we have an interest in it. Mr. Mende must build a good house, possibly for his reputation, or he has a stake in the house, because if he doesn't build a good one, his reputation is gone. You need to pay your mortgage, or you need to pay for your house. If you don't pay, the mortgage company will take the house. If you don't want your kids to be out. But the problem that we are having today in the public-private partnership is that we do not have deals between the government and the private sector who is building the houses. People who are being given land right now, most of them, they don't qualify, zilch, zero. It's just because they are connected with somebody. So that's not a deal in these PPPs. It's a jet whereby someone is gaining from the beginning. The one who is giving someone so that at the end of the day, they go and share. This is the cancer that we need to deal with. If we are to build sustainable real estate and build billion-dollar institutions, you cannot build $1 billion with the jets that we are seeing happening in these developments. Some of these developments are worth my penny to put, because I'm buying a house in some of these developments. I'm glad there are some developments that I'm beginning to see. I know my brother said you're doing gated communities. Gated communities with water, borrow water, because water is a problem. Gated communities with the possibly solar, so that we know electricity is a problem. So why, if I'm going to build, why can't I put solar so that I build something that is sustainable and everybody will be looking for? We can make $1 billion. We can then move into $1 billion. Not what we are seeing right now. What we are seeing is a shame, and people who are doing it need to stop it.
I'll definitely take note of stop there. Definitely a minor glitch in the matrix there. I was going to say we'll definitely take note of the last part there, that they need to stop it. I do have 2 more questions before we get to question and answer, as I will be roving the mic over to the tables. I will take up this one with Mr. Chester Mende. And what are the biggest challenges, or rather, if we could move with what incentives can encourage private investors to fund sustainable estates projects?
Thank you. I need to start by amplifying on something that I spoke about, which was challenged a little earlier. When I talked about community funding, I'm not talking about the historical cooperatives that collapsed. They collapsed because they were political. What I spoke about is community, and community is you and I. If you remember, my example was Chabata and I, because we know each other. Whether we like it or not, the ratio of funding housing in this country at the moment is still predominantly privately funded. And I can roughly say that it's as much as 70, 80%, if not more, privately funded by individuals who are not funded by banks, mortgages, or insurance companies. So let's get that clear. So that we go home knowing that I'm not talking of the political cooperatives of before, where the chairman ran away with your money. The word I used was community, and maybe I must regret having used the word cooperative to illustrate the point. I hope that's clear. Sustainability. We are coming up with a diaspora mortgage and a domestic mortgage listed on the Victoria Falls Stock Exchange later on this year. I know this year is a couple of weeks old, but I'm sure it'll happen before the end of this year. And I'm hoping we'll be able to launch it before the end of this year. We're just waiting for the regulator to put the signature to it. And I talk about that because it is related to sustainability. Victoria Falls Stock Exchange is US dollars, and to us it transcends 2030. Therefore, if you are lending off the Victoria Stock Exchange, if you are investing on the Victoria Stock Exchange, your investment is safe. My brother also spoke about Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae in America. We used to have a similar arrangement in this country, which was called the National Housing Fund. Unfortunately, the National Housing Fund has gone away, and those who organize conferences and those who lobby, I hope that they will be able to lobby government. Kura spoke of Ministry of Finance, but on the ground, the National Housing Fund has been housed in the Ministry of Local Government, and I suppose today it would go into the Ministry of National Housing, so that they underwrite the loan. Erica, this addresses the point you made earlier about civil servants. What used to happen, which is along those lines of securing a loan, was that there was a 90% government guarantee to a mortgage through the National Housing Fund. So that if there was a default at the building society or at the bank or the building society would claim from the National Housing Fund, which is the equivalent of the Fannie Mae, Ginnie Mae model that was talked about earlier. We need that here, so that we as the developers build, the funders finance with the knowledge that they will get their money, and they will get their money from the purchaser, and without foreclosing on the purchaser, they can be supported by the government fund or whatever. But discussions with the Ministry of Finance have leaned towards this being a private sector structure. The Ministry of Finance is saying, why don't the pension funds themselves come with a banker of last resort amongst themselves? So, they can come together, however many they are, and agree on who they trust, and or they create an institution, and that institution becomes the banker of last resort. And the banker of last resort becomes the equivalent of the guarantor, as in the case of this arrangement in the United States. For those that are in the business of Googling and research, we are talking about mortgage securitization. So with mortgage securitization, you are then saying, the lender, the primary lender, packages his mortgage loans. He can do this as an individual, but normally it is shared by a bunch of lenders. They package their loans into a common security. The mortgage-backed security is the one that then gets securitized. It's then funded by the bank of last resort. So I guess these are some of the things that we need to begin to discuss so that we can reinforce the structure. But I want to reiterate my earlier point. We must persuade government to extend beyond 2030 on the US dollar, because your local institutions and your local individual investor is going to be exposed to local instruments if government come back and they say you're back to a whole country that is ziggarized away from US dollar. I hope I've done justice to the sustainability. I believe that platform creates mature loans that are sound, that finance the housing business.
Would it be, you keep having a minor glitch, would that be okay if we have that as your closing statement?
Sorry? What is
Would
it?
that be okay if we have that as your closing remark?
Yeah, that'll be fine.
Yeah. All right. Over to you, Mr. Chabata. Because of time, we'll be taking in closing remarks on our first panel.
I want you to understand that me and my brother have nothing against each other. We are the best of brothers. And I want you to tell you something that is a little contrary to what he said. We'll go nowhere if we keep using the US dollar. Nowhere. We need to start believing in ourselves and create the money, which is a symbol of exchange for our goods. Malawi, the poorest country in the region, uses kwacha. If you go with your US dollar, you never buy anything. Zambia, you never buy anything. China, you never buy. Everybody else, except Zimbabweans, I don't know what's wrong with us. Nkoma Mende. Let me finish. US dollar is not our money. It is nothing supporting it except in God we trust. It's falling. Did you see the way it fell the last three weeks? And then only the election of Trump raised it up. It goes up and down, up, because trust in what you are doing. This country is very rich. We can get our foreign currency by trading. If we are honest, you are the only, we diasporans, we feel shortchanged by you people here. We bring in money. You take the money, you take it to go and buy houses in South Africa and Dubai. What are you doing? You are a bunch of thieves. There are a bunch of crooks and thieves in this country. We actually get worried and annoyed by some of the things that we do. He said something very good. But let me just tell you, we need to begin to see that Zimbabwe is a best country that is in the region. Our money cannot be best if we undermine. We undermine ourselves by undermining our money. Stop taking our money outside. Let's use our local currency, and investors will come in and use your local currency. They bring in US dollar, they get the Reserve Bank, they get local currency, we trade in local currency. We will lift our country. But if we keep waiting to see how much dollars am I keeping and all this, the things that we need to address, my brother Mende, is we need to address our banks. We need to make them strong. We need to have people whom we can believe in. All this respond. Money is responding to perception, the perception of how we look at ourselves. We need to start believing in ourselves, and we need to start using our own money. Foreign currency must be to buy things from other countries, not to buy things in our own country. We can never get it because we don't produce it, and actually we are sanctioned, or we have partial sanctions from where it comes from. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think that sparks an entire new panel. Confirm. We need another 1 hour to talk about the currency issue, buying fuel in local currency, buying land in local currency, paying for our passports in local currency. But I think we'll get another platform. I think he wants to comment, and then we'll go to Crystal to give her.
I just wanted, I need to remind everybody that I'm a geriatric, okay? And therefore, I'm speaking from experience. And I need my young brother here to know that people have burnt their investments before. The issue that is required here is we need fidelity in our regulators. If government can commit and can underwrite that the Zim dollar or the ZIG is not going to depreciate and change its name, then that's fine. But we all know that between 2008 and today, our currency has changed its name and value 4 times. Now, each time that it has turned, we've lost money. So I'm a Zimbabwean, and having been here for 43 years and being almost 70 in a couple of months' time, years' time, it means that I'm going nowhere. Therefore, I want a sober environment in which to operate. And the suggestion that I make is, I'm not saying let's keep the US dollar. Please remember what I said. I said government needs to address 2030. Those were my exact words. And what government does with addressing 2030 is they can either continue to run the US dollar, or they can come and give us a secure currency that takes over from 2030. And then we move forward. So please hear me right. I am not saying that we should not have our own currency. Zambia, Mozambique, Malawi, that have been given as examples, the regulators are sound and reliable, and their currencies, as old as I am, Zambia has only had one currency in my 70 years. It has been a Zambian kwacha. There was a collapse at some point, and it was a temporary glitch when they had an auction system which ran for a couple of years and was not successful. We need to make sure that whatever we do, our Zimbabwean kwacha or whatever we are going to call it, is going to be there forever in the day. That's the only point I was making.
Thank you very much. I'm sure this debate can rage on. For the sake of time, I'll allow Crystal to give her closing remark. But we'll continue this one during the break.
All right. I'm very passionate about housing the unhoused, and well, Zimbabwe's got a very big housing deficit. And for me, that is my mission. So we can't all stay in Borodobrook, in this side of town. There's a lot of people here. I believe in the everyday person, in the masses. So whatever I bring to the table, whatever solution is always about how do we make housing accessible to all. And my closing remarks, I want people to sit down and sit back. Yes, Zimbabwe is a big country. We've got a lot of land. They said to our agricultural land into my new projects, housing and all of that. But we've already got these established neighborhoods. They are overpacked. There's an infrastructure breakdown. And I've not heard any conversations talking around what can we do to revive that and gentrify some of these places that have been really run down. Harare, for example, is prime. Even Cheroruku, even if you're in Warren Park, even if you're in Mabuku, what if we can go and buy 3 streets, or they're already established, there's people that are there, they've got their houses. We get into a public-private partnership with the council to upgrade the infrastructure, to make it sustainable so that no matter whatever gets built on top of that can be easily upgraded in the future. And then we build going up so that we can house all these people and we can house more people, because as it is, Harare is prime. Why are we running away from the city when we can improve the city? That's also one thing that I keep on asking, why are we running away from it? Mbare is right here. If anyone is thinking about investing the money, I'm saying, you have to be forward thinking. Think 20 years from now. A person that owns that property next to that cemetery in Mbare, that person is going to be very rich actually. And by the time we wake up to that, it's new city. You know, and it's owned by the Chinese. But anyways, yes, those are my closing remarks.
Thank you very much indeed. I think it's the signs of the times. Takakura chido driver Benz unogara Borodale. Because to have Brook, Chish Hills, and so on and so forth. It will expand, it will grow. Takura Shansa Expo. Kura, last but not least, you have to wrap it up. What's your last word representing the panel to this esteemed audience?
Thank you. We are Zimbabweans. This is our country, this is our legacy, this is our opportunity. I implore each and every one of us to want more, to want better, to expect better. We are going to create the very thing in reality that we first started in our minds. If we take the in situ assets, we've got water, roads, buildings. How do we get to highest and best use? What intellectual capacity do we have? We don't need to be James at Google or whoever anywhere else in the world. Patiri babab. We can organize ourselves and say, I can do better. And when we can do better, let's ask for better. If it's a council representation, are we collecting refuse? But am I paying my rates and taxes? If we're paying money across to Zimra government, are we getting back what we pay for in our levies? Whatever it is that we've paid out. If it's a developer, do not pay title deed prices for session when you get it. Make sure that you're putting the pressure to say, when is the timeline? What do we get? When do we get it? And expect better. The game and the game changer in our scenario is going to be you, the educated player, demanding better. And with that, the sky's the limit. God bless this country. Ngatifambe Nebora.
There you have it, the icing on the cake. We would like to get questions from the floor. Confirm, Magdi. Yes, they're not yet off the hook. Just one or two questions. I think there's a question there. Sure, from the audience. Yeah. All right, so do it quickly. Yes, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much to the panel for a very sound discussion. My question is directed to Christel.
Targeted sanction.
You mentioned tokenization of investments in buildings, especially commercial buildings. What I want to know is how safe it is. We have had collective investments before, and so many people have been arrested for a violation of the Collective Investments Act. The Ponzi schemes are an example. And now we have rates which are also regulated under the Collective Investment Scheme. Now, the tokenization, is it not a creation of a pseudo rate which is not regulated? And also, are we not in violation of that act? We do not want to see a situation where we end up being arrested for violation.
Right, exactly. That is where the conversation is ongoing with the regulators in place, which is your Securities and Exchange Commission, that says it's collective investment. It's collective investment. These are certain licenses that have to be in place. Then you've also got your RBZ that has also certain measures that they ask, because these are digital assets, digital financial assets. So you are playing in both fields. As it is, in Zimbabwe, there is no framework for digital assets, tokenized assets. But there's the benchmark where the collective investments. Okay, set up, a REIT is a structure that can be used in what we do in tokenization. We can use a REIT, we can use a company, a publicly traded one, a non-publicly traded. We can use a listed REIT, we can use a non-listed REIT. We can use a cooperative scheme as a structure in tokenization. So REITs are structures that work with tokenization. So with every structure that you then get to create for a project or for a property, you come up with the suitable structure with the right frameworks in place so that everyone is okay. That is why I say that we are live, but there is no project that's trading because of those parameters. Yes.
Thank you very much. We'll take one more. Yes, this side. One more question. I think during the break, you get to interact with some of the panelists. We also want to make sure we're on time. So one more question. The lady in white. Yeah.
Thank you. My name is Danai. My question is going to the panelists about green bonds or green financing. I feel we cannot talk about sustainable real estate development if we cannot touch base on green financing and green bonds. Thank you.
All right, did you get that?
Yeah, would love to see them. In more established markets, on a commercial basis, you get, don't want to use, your loans are cheaper with green bonds. Because I know IFC has got a particular program, Nedbank in South Africa has got a particular program. Because it's a good cause, because it's got a long life cycle, they give, in South Africa, the case study I looked at was 150 basis points cheaper than finance. So if you and I are borrowing, it'll be 11%, but if we're borrowing for a green product, it'll be at 9.5%. So we need a depth and a sophistication of a market that sees value in doing what is right because it's good. So there is the opportunity, but I haven't seen a tradable instrument. I know Old Mutual has just done a big scheme, and then individual corporates and the mines are in that space, but I don't think it's a commercially ready product that's out there as much as it's desired and needed, because Tanzania generators kumasababu.
And the Tanzania generator, yes?
I'm not a fan of government when it comes to funding things. Because every time government tells you it's going to fund you for this project, it means that they will start first have to put their hands in your pockets to take money from you. Then they will come and say, we are funding it for you. Because government is not a producer of anything. They're just supposed to guide and put sound policies so that you and me can make money. Public-private, with the green bonds, it goes back to the government. I heard my brothers talking about Fannie Mae, the American system. Let me just tell you something. That Fannie Mae is for the poor. Section 8, people who are called Section 8 people, those homeless ones, the people that have no homes, that's the ones that use mainly Section 8, which is funded by Fannie Mae. People like you and me who aspire to do, we go to the banks and take a loan and be responsible. Never trust anything the government will say will do it for you, or don't expect the government to do anything for you, because it's not a producer, it's a policymaker. So I want to warn you from now. Right now, that's why you have a minister of taxation. He has no ideas. What he only thinks of is how to tax you, take money from you, because you want things. Let's work for ourselves. Let's go back to the partnerships that were said. Those people with money, we partner with them to do things. We have to rise. We are the Zimbabweans. I heard somebody saying, my brother was saying, the government is to do something. The government is you and me. If we don't take a stand and say, this is enough, we are now going this direction, and continue to wait. Remember, just imagine, you are the people that vote those guys. Some of them, they are thugs because they can beat people so much in the neighborhood, so you select them to be chairpersons. From there, they want to be MPs. They are the ones that are elected as MPs, not because of what they know and because of how much they hit or how much noise they make. We need to begin to feel that we are the people, you are the government. What you need changed is not going to be changed by someone. It's you who is going to change it.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. That brings our panel to an end. We opened up for 2 questions on the floor. Indeed, innovative financing models for sustainable real estate development. Let's give it up once more for our panel.
With that being said, I'd like to say thank you so much to our panelists, and by name, that is at Mr. Kura Chiwota, and we also had Mr. Chester Mende, and we had Ms. Crystal Mushonga, and also at Mr. Philip Chabata. And the topic for this first panel was innovative financing models for sustainable real estate development.